it's crucial that people realise that there's a process to this. There's a culture that you don't like now, but could have a huge impact on the next generation of footballers coming through.
You are listening to House of Football, brought to you by Sports Joe and William Hill.
Hello, I'm Eric Lalor. You're very welcome to House of Football with Sports Joe and William Hill. I am joined this week by one of Ireland's most recognisable faces, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Philly McMahon. Hello, Philly. You're very welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me on.
It's I know a lot of our podcast subscribers and listeners will be going, Philly McMahon? But he's a gay man. Of course, you were known as a 6-time All-Ireland winner, 11-time Lens. Listen, your role of honour goes on forever. But we have you here today to talk about football, Philly, because let's be honest, you are a big football fan. You've been involved in football, and I want to throw it right back to when you started out as a young lad, right? You obviously played both sports, yeah, and you became like one of the weird things when we did our investigations about you was we found out you're an Everton fan, which is a rare thing these days, Philly. How can you just tell me how that came about?
Yeah, it was kind of, I had no choice, to be honest.
Oh, really?
My dad and my brother and even me sisters were Everton fans, so it was pushed on us. For some reason, when my dad was growing up, there was a huge Everton base in the north of Ireland and in the south, and yeah, there would have been years where I would have been dragged to Home Farm when there was a connection between Everton and Home Farm.
Oh, that's right, Home Farm Everton, yeah.
And I watched a couple of games down there with them, but I've been an Everton fan. Look, there's a huge connection. Everton was obviously set up by a Catholic brother, and obviously then that I'd say was the connection between Ireland and Everton. Right.
Okay. So then obviously as a kid growing up, you would have played both sports.
Yeah. Soccer was my first sport. So just for a clearance of the wording and the language I use, soccer I'm saying because I'm a guy head, and if there's any guy heads listening in, they'll be going, football, is he talking about Gaelic football? So apologies to the football people that I say soccer.
Soccer.
Yeah, so I played soccer first, and I probably would have started with a team called Ballymuntown actually, which amalgamated to Ballymon United eventually at the age of 7, went to Nottingham Forest at the age of 14, played for Belvedere as well, and I suppose soccer is the game I've worked most in all the sports that I've my hand on. I suppose I work in with athletes around MMA and rugby and GAA, but soccer is the one I've worked in most.
But you mentioned there, like started off with Ballymun, then like trials with Forest, played with Belvedere, like one of the top schoolboy clubs in the country, never mind in Dublin. So you were obviously decent.
Yeah, and I was lucky. Look at, I think the structures of the schoolboy, set up now here in Ireland is a little bit more difficult in terms of the age groups, 13, 15, 17. There's a lot of lads based off their physical profile and not actually their potential technically are getting left behind, which is letting the game down a little bit. I never had that, so I was just, my dad bring me down to Fairview. If I played well, we'd get the bus back. If I played poorly, we'd walk back to Ballymun, that was the
tough love.
The tough love I got from my dad. But I
so
really
what ultimately then made you decide to go with the GAA?
Okay, well, I suppose I was that typical young kid that was, when I played well in GAA, I was loving GAA. When I played, well in soccer, I hated GAA. But I suppose Paddy Christie was the key thing for me was Paddy Christie before I went. Myself and another guy called Mark Hartigan, who's from Ballymun as well, went over to Forest and we had a party before we went over, and Paddy came to it and he said, look, I hope you do well and I hope you make it, and if you don't, when you come back, GAA will be always here for you, So when I came back, I obviously, my mates were in school that played Gaelic football, and they were coming in with the best of gear that Paddy was looking after them with, and I was kind of like asking questions around how well I was being looked after in the soccer world,
right? And
I suppose that veered me then back into heavily being focused around Gaelic football. Wasn't very good at Dublin. I was on the Dublin squads from the development ages up to minor. Wasn't a big name or anything like that. Started to physically develop from 18, 19, 20. Started really going after a career in the gym industry, so started to develop physically. Dublin captain on the 21s and played for that same year. I made my debut for the Dublin senior team.
And were you still playing football at that stage as well?
No, I finished football about 16.
Right.
Yeah, and after probably about 16, 17 years, I went back playing for Tolka this year, you know.
I know, and you marked my son in a game there.
I did, yeah,
weeks
he's
ago,
very
Tolka
good.
Rovers, Ballymun
I
United.
tried to mark him. He's definitely a bit quicker than me, you know. Big heavy guy legs on me. Yeah.
But it's great. I love the fact that you're still involved. You're still playing. You're still tugging out every week on and playing for a local club. It's great to see.
Yeah,
you know?
Tolka's brilliant because you're like physically you're okay, you know, but you're going in and you're getting challenged a little bit differently technically. So you're trying to get your touch so much better. You know, I've been exposed to the tactics of the game at the highest level in this country, so I know a bit about that. But it's the technical side that I'm trying to get better at, you know.
Yeah. So just going into the football career and your professional involvement with football, I suppose. And I suppose the first kind of high profile gig you were given was you were like the strength and conditioning coach out of Shamrock Rovers under the stewardship of when Trevor Crowley was the manager out there. And can you tell us a little bit about how that happened and how?
Yeah, I was training a couple of lads individually. I had a couple of different agents sending their players to me to be training them before they went over to England. So I had Jack Bourne, I had who else? We had Alex O'Hanlon, who was in Liverpool. We had Enda Stevens, who went to Aston Villa. So I was
Wardy's
training.
mate.
Wardy's mate. So I was training a load of them lads, and Trevor actually was doing little bits with Enda because he'd done bits with him in Rovers, and we'd sat down and had a chat. And I remember Trevor kind of saying to me, "What would you do if you were the strength and conditioning coach? Would you come in once a week? Would you come in I said, I'd get rid of one of your players and I'd come in full time. And he said, that's probably what we do. If that's what I do, he said. So he got the job. He got the job after, I think, Stephen Kenny.
Yeah.
I think he was the manager before him, and then Michael Neal was before him. And he got the job, and I was S&C for the 2012 and 2013 season there.
Yeah, I did speak to you that year.
No.
For obvious reasons. But anyway, so fast forward then again, I suppose it transpired then a couple of years later, Trevor Crowley moved over across the city, came to Bowes, assistant manager for Keith Long. And I would imagine then on the back of the work he did at Rovers, you were still in Trevor's thoughts, and he was probably the one who recommended you to Keith Long. And can you tell us how that all started as well?
Well, we definitely stayed connected, me and Trevor. We'd meet regularly and talk about sports performance. Trevor's brilliant, and he's highly kind of
I'm revered as one of the best coaches in the country.
Yeah, for a reason, because he's always trying to learn. He's always trying to look at different. It's very innovative, like, you know. And in 2018, he asked me to go in and do a bit of work with the team, and I did. And again, nothing down to me, but probably a bit of luck. They went on a 13 game winning streak. They got beaten by Cork after a replay.
Oh God, I remember I was there, the Turners Cross. Yeah,
1-0 up in Dalymount in the first game, and the ball came over, and Darrell Lee went to kick the ball. Unfortunately, gave a pen away, and I think Ian Morris scored a screamer down in Cork.
One of the best goals I've ever seen live.
It was a cracker, you know. But yeah, that was, I suppose, that gave them a little bit, like, you know what, this fella might have something. Help us a little bit, you know. So done a little bit 2019 season. 2020 was the COVID season. They done really well.
When you said you were doing a little bit with them, Philly, what were you doing? You were doing workshops with them, was it?
But between 2018 and 2021, when I went in full time with them, it was more workshops, you know, going in and essentially those workshops. For example, let's call them connection workshops.
Okay.
So if I have a conversation with you today, I know you a little bit more. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we build a better connection. And it's like an iceberg. So if we have general conversation, that's above the water. That's the information we talk about day to day above the water. If we go under the water, you go into the vulnerable state of the individual, and you start to build a deeper connection and a stronger connection. It's like a web, and the web gets thicker and thicker and thicker. So loads of things happen because of that. Fellas know each other. You create a safe psychological space. So people are talking about issues outside of the change rooms.
So that's building trust.
Building trust, building connection, building building a safe space around vulnerabilities, and essentially that connection piece helps you on the pitch and off the pitch. So that's what we would have done in workshops. As I said, stayed connected with the lads. 2021, there had been 10 players had moved on, I think, or came in. There was a dynamic to a change that was very, very problematic for the group, you know. So the first 9 games, you know, there's 4 sets of 9 games. First 9 games, I'd been talking to Trev at the start of the season, you know, put a couple of poor results, and they'd won 2 out of 9. So I spoke to Trev. I said, Trev, have you looked at these things? He says, no. So I bring it to Keith. Keith, he said, you know what? I think we need to do those things, but we don't have the time to do it. Can we speak to... So two of them sat down with me and I said, look, I think there's so much more I can give you, but I need to come in and do it for you, like, you know. So that's what we did. We built up a list of questions. By the way, I can't go into the individual's information, but I can go into the structures of what I've done, because it won't impact the current team, because the team has changed so much and there's different management. So that's the only reason I'm speaking about this, and I haven't spoke. This is the first time you're getting exclusive.
Hey.
But essentially, sat down with the players individually, and we basically had a list of questions, and we wanted to find out a couple of things. First of all, we discovered that there was a misalignment with the group. So apart from Georgie Kelly, he was the only one that won something within the group in his career in terms of at that level.
And that's when he was with Dundalk and he was on the periphery of the team. He was a sub. He was
exactly. Yeah, he was
criminally underused.
Yes, yeah. So we wanted to change. We wanted to impact we wanted to have a mindset shift. Okay, so we wanted to change that paradigm. The paradigm is basically look at all the habits and change those habits so they think in a higher frequency.
Okay.
So regardless if they play whoever in the league or PAOK in Europe, that the mindset is kind of still trying to get to that level of overthinking below the performance levels that they want to get to. Right. So they're always thinking, it's like, I want to win an All-Ireland. You can't just think I want to win an All-Ireland. You have to think above that, so that if you fall short, you win an All-Ireland, right?
What's above an All-Ireland?
Best performing version of yourself, or
best, on an individual basis,
be, or performance more, you know. So there's loads of different ways you can kind of be above that. So and the other thing that we kind of identified from those meetings was that it was a misalignment. So they were all thinking of different things, but we also found out that a lot of these players were in no way bad. You know, we're looking at, you know, Bowes as a really good development club that was going to bring them to the next step of their career. A stepping stone. Exactly. So I brought that information to the group, to the management group. I would have met Trevor and Keith on a weekly basis for performance meetings, and I would have said to them, look, at the start of this is going to have a huge impact on us, because if we do well this year, these lads will move on. They don't have long contracts. Yeah. The club is in a transition. It's doing well. The expectations.
You can only give them 1 year contracts at the time.
You can't. So it was coming. There was nothing that Keith and Trevor could have done. Okay, I can tell you that I've looked back on that. Probably a little bit more an impact on recruitment was needed, but it was coming the year before, right? So that's what happened, and we brought them on a mindset shift. We brought them on a quantum leap, it's called. Got them thinking of a higher frequency, and we got them then performing at a higher frequency, and we got them getting results. And that's what happened. The second 9 games, the idea is let's outperform everybody, right? And let's outperform everybody by looking at certain KPIs. Okay, so we set KPIs and we spoke about them religiously. Like, in fairness to the lads,
for anyone not sure what a KPI is, a key performance indicator, isn't it?
Yeah. And they were very generalised at that stage, and we needed to make them more specific so that we could actually impact the game live. Okay. So we started looking at those, and we started trying to beat those KPIs constantly. So, and that worked really well. The second 9 games, we outperformed every team bar Sligo. Okay. All right, but we didn't win every game. We won 6 out of 9. We drew 1.
Huge improvement on the first 9 though.
Yeah, and we lost. We underperformed from Sligo. Third round of games, we done well enough. The difficulty we have in the third 9 of games is we had congestion weeks. We had 11 congestion weeks in the season. The next team was Shamrock Rovers, who had 6.
When you say congestion week?
Friday, Mondays.
Oh,
Friday,
of course,
Mondays.
yes.
We had 11, right?
Wow.
So physically, we again flagged that was going to take a toll on our body. We were in Europe. Again, done well in Europe. You know, we looked at we wanted to, you know, look at our KPIs the same as what we're doing in the domestic league to Europe. And some of the most brilliant workshops I've been a part of, because of the players and the management, have been abroad. Like, you know, there were special workshops, and we were we were very close to beating PAOK. Like, you know, probably if he didn't concede the goal in Aviva, it would have been a bit easier. Wally maybe scoring that goal.
I know, poor old Wally.
But a lot went against us that day, you know.
But it's an incredible, I know people who listen to this podcast know my allegiances in League of football with Bowes, and they're probably sick of me talking about Bowes, but that particular summer, the 3 nights in Aviva, like, as I've mentioned it a couple of times, as a Bowes fan, and I think even for the wider general League of Ireland fans, 3 really special nights. Like the weather was beautiful, obviously great circumstance, and we were in COVID as well, and it was a relief being back in the stadium, being with your friends again. But the performance levels of Bows in Europe, like, didn't just, like the first 2, Starnian and Dudelange, who Pats have now, like just dispatched them comfortably,
particularly at home.
Yeah,
you know, because we looked at our KPIs, and again, that was probably one of the things that didn't fall right for us against Pauk, was that we had our first game at home. Yeah, you know, the other 2 games they
were the second leg we were home.
Dogged the first 2 games and brought them home and really done well. And performance wise, like our performance KPIs, believe it or not, it's mad to think. When we went to Pauk, there was very little Bows fans there because of COVID. There was a couple that snuck in.
Yeah,
you know,
most of them were in a pool party. Down the road, weren't allowed in
at the bar. But when you walk out of the stadium, right, it's like a bowl. And I have a clip where I was behind the lads as they were walking out, because you use some of that video stuff for meetings and stuff like that. Okay, for motivation and everything. But they were walking out. They walk up the steps and. I think it's AC/DC. Do you know where it goes? Boom. It's like the Undertaker. Yeah. In the wrestling. Boom, boom.
Right. It's
like you're in hell. Yeah. Right. And you're walking up, and on the right hand side, it's just, I would say, I don't know. It's like, let's say Hill 16, just all men though. Right. It was weird. It was like loads of men, like, and they're just screaming, like, and you're just
the
like,
ultras.
Oh my God, this is like, it was just incredible. Like probably what you get in the Jody stand in one section. Yeah. Screaming the same thing. It was an incredible experience. 32 degrees. Yeah. So before the game, myself and Daniel Lambert were we had the UEFA official there, and we were saying, this is the way we were setting up. Our KPIs were based on 4 quarters. Right. Even in the league, we were like, right, okay, quarter 1, quarter 2, half time, get in, reassess, quarter 3, quarter 4. And it suited us down the ground. But it was like, you couldn't get a water break if it was below 32, I think it was. Wow. 31 degrees. So we had planned this. We had said in our meetings, get to the first quarter, get to the half time, and then we reassess. Like, just do your best for that 17 and a half minutes. And me and Daniel Lambert were going over to the UEFA official saying, it's too warm. We need water breaks. We need water breaks right before the game. And there was an actual thermometer on like beside the screen. We're like, it's about to hit 32.
You're praying for it to hit 32.
This is not good. Yeah. And we got it. Right. And we got it. Because we knew they were in pre-season as well. Like, they were only starting to build a fitness up. And then we got the 2 sucker punch goals right at the beginning. Like, so that killed us. But our KPIs, by the way, we outperformed. Our KPIs outperformed Pauk. You can still hit your best KPIs and lose. Really? So we, like, the 2 main ones were, we looked at offensive, defensive. Right. So we wanted to look at our best performance, shots on target, and then the opposition shots on target against. So, and all of the other stuff fits in with that. Right, so they're just the main 2 numbers to think of, because you have loads of KPIs. It doesn't go into your head as a sports person. Have you got simple information? So, if you were saying to the lads, first quarter, no shots, they don't get no shots. That's what they're thinking in the match. Okay. So they're thinking, right, no shots. So they go in at half time, and the opposition have had 4 shots, and 2 of those are on target. The manager can directly say to them, okay, defensively, what's not working? Because look at our stats. Or it could be, we want to get 17 shots and we want to get 11 shots and
so
7 on target.
Like, because like, I'm fascinated with the fact that this is live, right? Yeah. Like when I think of performance analysis, I always think it's after the fact. So this is what we did last week. We need to improve. But the fact that you are doing it live is like, it's new to me. And you're saying just even there, first quarter, no shots. Okay, we have a problem there because we got 2 shots on target. That's being said at halftime. Are you able to present the figures there at halftime in the dressing room? Yeah.
So we particularly at home, we'd have the TVs in Dalymount. Okay. So you'd have one with the stats, and then you'd have one with actually clips of what needs to be improved. So Trevor would be going through, right? Aaron, who was the statistician, he'd be clipping the game up while the management are speaking, and he'd be saying, right, okay, the connection between them getting 4 shots is they're attacking us down the left wing, or they've got to go because we dropped the runner. Why did that runner be dropped? Or we're not getting enough shots because we're not playing this system that we want to play. And another key one was what I was doing. So you would have seen me in the Aviva just on my laptop.
I feel this. I remember I was doing co-coms for a Bows Rovers game, and there wasn't that many people in the stadium because of COVID. And I was in the gantry. I remember looking down and you and a couple of the Bows backroom team, and you were on your laptop, and here I was, here, Philly.
Yeah, I never got to watch the
on
games
Facebook or something was going, you think he'd watch the match,
Yeah,
or he's watching a Sunday game or something.
I never really got to watch the games as well, because I'd be like this, look.
Yeah.
So essentially what I was doing there, I was looking to see momentum shifts in the game. So if Pau,
so you could tell by the data there of momentum shifts.
Yeah,
that's
like
incredible.
So we would have a chart that's looking at, if we were playing Rovers, let's say, I'd be able to give information that they're starting to get momentum. So momentum, what we identified was momentum was linking to goals. So every time the opposition got momentum, it was goals. So I used to have myself and Anto Breslin used to have great crack, because the odd time when they were rotating Anto and Tariq Wilson, if Anto was on the bench, he'd sit beside me and go, "What's the momentum like? It's coming, Anto. The goal is coming," and it'd come.
Wow,
the goal would come. Right? Yeah, you'd be knocking at the wall.
Is that either for or against? You could tell
both. Yeah. So you'd see like a momentum shift, and that momentum shift is good. The information will be going in, keep doing it. Or sometimes, even if the momentum is good, you're telling them to shift to another level. So
okay.
Because your opposition adapts to what you're doing.
Right.
So when let's say if we were playing Rovers and they were getting momentum, we'd radio down, change to the opposite plan.
Wow.
And the plan would be there, and the coach would go, right, okay, get the message in, we're going to this colour.
Right. So the manager would choose then to take the advice or not. It's not
Keith, we're there just to support Keith. Keith's there to support to him. So we'd give the information down to him, and he decides whether he wants to do it or not.
Right.
And that's fine. He's the main man, like, you know. So, like, I'll give you an example. We would have in Pauk in the Aviva, we would have said at a certain stage that a certain defender needed to be changed. He looked like he was fatiguing, and a player got across him for the goal, and that would have been radioed down.
Right.
The information back would have been, Keith was okay. He's you know, this is grand. We think he's all right. So that's what you have to take. You know?
Yeah.
And then I suppose you kind of have to say, well, look, at the end of the game when you debrief it, why aren't we using that information? Or, you know, so that's that dialogue is very important. So everybody in the management team has an important part to play, and that was one of the key things I wanted to do when I went into the group, was from Collie, who was the most connected man in the club, with the team and the club and the fans. Yeah. He's been there with loads of different managers. I wanted to look at supporting him. Aaron was somebody that was helping Collie as a kit man.
Okay, so you were making connections with people who were non-playing staff as well.
Oh yeah. Well, no, they were staff, but like what we were doing was we were looking at how could we get the best out of them. How could we, you know, not just players, the staff as well, to an extent, because that wasn't just my role was to go in and help the environment and help the team.
Like, you're not going up to Collie afterwards and going, "Here, you folded that jersey wrong there, Collie."
No, it's sitting down with Collie and saying, "Collie, what do you think we need to do? Is there anything more? What support do you need in terms of having the best kit there?" Having, you know, so Collie was obviously very little you could support Collie because he was there so long and done so well.
Army man as well, disciplined.
Unbelievable man. Like,
how long does it take, Philly, for you when you go into a group like that? Does it depend on the individual, like, to earn their trust? So you're going in, you're asking them questions, and you're explaining why you're asking these questions. Are some people more guarded and wondering, what the fuck's this all about, kind of thing? What's this got to do with football?
I suppose my way of getting the trust straight away was making sure my information was, let's put it this way, non-bullshit.
Right.
You know, make sure the information is as accurate as possible. But I suppose the crucial part was, the lads knew that my job was to get the best out of them, to make them have a better career, to make them potentially make more money. So I would have had lads that have moved on and still contacted me and done kind of stuff with me. And I remember a player I've spoke to, and day one, and his ambition was to play in England at the highest level. That was his goal. So he had his goal for Bows and his goal for himself. And he only contacted me last year and said, "I'm getting closer to it.
Right.
I'm in England now, and I'm getting closer to it." Like, so
all the Bows fans, isn't this now going, "Who's that one?"
Yeah. There's a few players to go through there, but I think that's what I want to do. I want to build up the respect of the lads that all I'm here to do is help you. You know, that's it. And if some of the stuff you don't take on board, that's cool. Like, I remember Keith Buckley saying, "Do you use this stuff in England?" Like, it's surely lads in England don't go. And like, yeah, they kind of do this in England at the minute, you know. Some clubs don't, but that's a real difficulty in the league. Like, you know, 21 to 22 season, stark difference. Like, you know, when I worked with Bows, because as I said, the dynamics changed. The group that I had in 2021, a huge amount of that leadership group moved on. Mm-hmm. You know, you had Keith Buckley, you had Andy, you had Georgie,
Rob Cornwall.
Am I missing anybody?
There's probably loads, because every season my heart breaks when I see the
5 or
players
6
leaving.
on that leadership group, and they all moved on. They all moved on. So that initial, the discussion we had at the start of 2021 that these lads will move on, that happened, but the whole leadership moved on. So we had already. So the plan was to put an emerging group in, leadership group in.
So this is the next kind of potential leader group coming through. So you would have identified these younger players as potential leaders going forward.
Yeah, from the 2021 group.
Right.
It was wasn't enough time. They didn't spend enough time at the club for that to be them to become leaders. But so I had a 3-year plan. Right, year 1, go in, look at the standards, look at the setup, look at the vulnerabilities, looking at connection, looking at documenting the culture, and driving performances. That's it. I wanted to get the best out of the team and wherever I could, and along with the great work that the coaching staff are doing. Year 2 then was give them ownership, develop a player-centric led culture. Year 3, hand it over to them and have the management team just really support that. But you're caught, because you had the group that you had from 2021. They weren't ready to step up as leaders. The new players that came in, you're going, I have to do 2021 stuff for Juice.
Right.
So it was. I should have stepped away, really.
Yeah.
I should have stepped away because it was too dynamic. But they had
when you say you should have stepped away, Philly, were you worried about how the perception of you being as the Bo's performance coach, so to speak, and Bo's struggling, and you thinking, people are going to blame?
No, not necessarily. I suppose. The writing was on the wall a little bit. I couldn't really help the group, so I just.
Was that frustrating for you?
I was probably stubborn. Yeah. I probably stubborn in a way that I was kind of saying to myself, "No, you can't help them, Philly. Keep going." But that's one of the main learnings. It was the 2022 season for me was one of the best learnings for me, and I'll take wherever I go because, and I think there's other clubs that are going through a similar transition to Bows now. Like you look at Shells. Shells, when you look at it, you look at the culture and the dynamics and the transition. Shells are going to be like Bows. If Shells have a good year, you'll have players, if they're on, let's say, single-year contracts. I'm sure there's multi-year contracts there as well, but they're going through a transition, and you could do a whole podcast on that as well. But I think the key thing for me was I didn't want to walk away when things weren't good, and. It's interesting. I think this is very important to acknowledge that Declan and the group that are there now have done unbelievably well, and I'd love them to go to that next level, get into Europe and do well. I would, because I'm still in contact with players. It's not so much the connection I have with Bowles, really. It's the
individuals.
It's the group of players that are there.
Booker
right?
still loves you. I was talking there recently. He's mad about you.
So Bucko rang me when he was coming back from Australia, and he was like, "Can I meet you for a session?" I was like,
"No way,
I'm not actually in the group anymore, Bucko, but come over, we'll chat." But he's a great fella and great leader, and the crazy thing was, as much as we identified the kind of the issues that we were going to have, we did a SWOT analysis after 2021. It was very hard to stop. The fires were you could see the fires happening. But we did try as a group. Bucko, that was done, right? James Talbot was done. Adam McDonald was done.
Right.
He was done the day before Keith got the boot. Paddy Kirk was definitely in the process. So all of those lads that were brought in were already in the process, so that was the first key part that we were going to try get for 2023. It was just we were running out of time, and obviously you have Grant Thornton came back from loan. That was from the 2022 season. You have Ali still there, and there was a few lads that moved on that were probably going to be moved on because it just wasn't working. So it's unfortunate that the dynamics probably could have. But you just can't say. I think Declan's come in with the lads and done a great job, So, but it's frustrating. You're right. It's frustrating because the amount of work that Keith and Trevor put in. The club had gone through a transition. Any manager that was there, that were going to go through that. Yeah, it was just unstoppable.
Is it something you'd be keen to do again? Would you like to get a step back into football?
Yeah, I would. I would, to be honest. I love it. I learned so much from the lads, learned so much from Trevor and Keith, Detzer, Benno, all the boys. I learned from everybody. It was brilliant. I just need, every time I go into the League of Ireland, I kind of need a time to kind of digest what's happened and the information that I've gathered so that I can bring that to the next group, So I suppose the League of Ireland I'm a fan of.
Yeah.
They've got something. I always think of it, and some people might find this offensive. I think League of Ireland is like Ballymun.
Right, okay.
Ballymun have been neglected by government policy for years. League of Ireland has been neglected by the FAI for years.
Yeah,
you know, and
the problem child.
And everybody has in the League of Ireland. They'll have rivalry, and it's like Bowes Rovers game the other night. Wow, but like for me, it's no matter where you go around the country, you will notice the difference between a League of Ireland fan and someone that's maybe a fan of English football or a fan maybe of the international stage, and maybe there's a crossover.
What's the difference really?
But they just love League of Ireland,
so passionate,
regardless of the club. Now I say that, you know, slightly, like, but
I know exactly where you're coming from. Like, I mean, I've been slated by opposition fans for my allegiances to Bowes, but at the end of the day, I have a hell of a lot more respect for a fan of another club than I would say a fan of Liverpool or Man United kind of thing. Like, you know, someone who supports the League of Ireland, I'm a fan of them, basically.
But you always hear that, Eric. You always hear, I'm a League of Ireland fan.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
And then within that, you have your club. But that's the difference. You never really see, like, I'm a fan of GAA. I am.
Yeah, of course.
But you never really have that, I'm a fan of GAA, like you would have, I'm a League of Ireland fan.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what's special about the league. I think you've got clubs that are really up against it. Like, I love what Drogheda do.
Yeah.
I really do. Like, they fight against it every time. I love what UCD do. You know,
and they still keep coming back for more and more.
And fighting Finn Harps.
Yeah.
You know, I think even Galway and Waterford coming up next year, if they're looking like they're going to be promoted. I think those two, I know the playoffs, but I think
it gives the league a bit more of a
dynamically. It spreads out a little bit more, you know. So I am a fan of the league. You know, I don't really have particular allegiance to one club. But
in terms of football and getting back into it, Philly, would you consider a move abroad or anything? Like,
I was asked to go over to 2 clubs in England actually at one point, but it wasn't actually for performance coaching. It was for strength and conditioning. But I have a young kid now, you know, I've Lennon, he's 16 months old. So, but you know, I've always been from a very young age that person that I've looked on with my club and with Dublin and said, I'm going to help them. You know, so if anybody's listening from Everton, let me know. I'll be over straight away. But
what if Robbie Keane gives you a shout for to join him in Maccabi Tel Aviv?
Do you know what? I spoke to Robbie a little bit about culture.
Really?
A couple of years ago, Keith Andrews linked us in, and Robbie was working with Mick McCarthy at the time, and I showed him a couple of frameworks, and Robbie was, he was liking it, but he was kind of more wanting to do himself. Right. But he said, look, when I go into management, I'll give you a shout about it. So I'm still waiting for the phone to ring.
Well, I mean, just on the whole GAA football thing, Philly, like, you know, one of the most high profile switches from GAA to football. Obviously, you had the historical one of Kevin Moore and Dubs legend.
Most playing.
Manchester United, like, incredible.
Yeah, incredible.
But Jim McGuinness.
Yeah.
You know, Donegal, he reinvented Donegal basically, and that whatever you want to call it, puke football or whatever you want to call it, I don't care.
Mass defence, let's call it.
Sorry, blanket defence, a very, very well structured defence.
Low block.
Low block, there you go. In football team, football
that's
players,
what it is.
A low block. Just get everyone behind the ball.
That's what he done. I think Jim's connection with football crossed over into GAA and he created a low block.
Right,
that's what he did. Yeah, and every team now you see doing it, which is it's challenged the game. It's challenged players and management to get to a level of tactics that it wasn't at. It's I suppose it's, you look at the spectator's point of view, it doesn't look really good. It's not end to end. It's not linear. As it was in generations, you know, which just kick the ball out, catch it, kick the ball in, score, you know. So I think the rule changes they're creating now is trying to
encourage more flowing
back, but it should be down to the players. But Jim McGuinness, in fairness to him, he brought a different game to the sport, and you see it. You go down to any club game now in Dublin, you'll see people getting behind the ball.
He's obviously a deep thinker of the game, and you know, inevitably, like, landed a role at Celtic. He's and like, look. Do you look at did you sense even, like, is there still that kind of level of snobbery, not snobbery, what's the word, you know, within the GAA of players doing that, daring to go and play or
not
get
really
involved
from the
in
GAA.
football?
No, not from the GAA. There's a cultural acceptance that if you want to bring something into the game or the sport, that you have to go outside it as well. Like, so I think of it like, I love the analogy I heard from a performance coach before, squeeze the orange, which basically means when you've got if you squeeze the orange within the group, the knowledge within the group, and the expertise within the group, but then you have to go from the outside. You have to look bringing information from the outside. And that's what Keith and Trevor done. They felt, we don't have the skills to do that stuff. Let's bring somebody in. An awful lot of coaches, I would say, in soccer in this country don't really look at that. Because why? They've spent so much time in their education and their badges and their money on the badges and stuff like that. And they've been passed down habits from years. Like, for example, I'll give you an example. Creating a safe psychological space is one of the most important things I tried to do with Bohs, because there had been, I'd spoke to players off different clubs over the years, and there's this culture or narrative that when someone makes a mistake or someone drops a runner or the team play bad, they hammer them individually, hammer them collectively. And I wanted to challenge that, because that doesn't work. That creates more fear. And when you have fear, you can't play with flow. So for me...
So don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Once you can... once you can speak about the error and learn from it, well, then that's what we want. You want players to say, I dropped the runner there and this is what I was thinking right before the runner. Like when I went in, we had an issue with conceding late, which happened in 2022 as well, and an issue with conceding from set pieces. So we started to question, well, what are you thinking in that moment?
Okay.
Right. Some of the centre halves and the full backs were thinking, don't concede, don't drop a runner. Right, which is it's negative self-talk. Don't think of the pink elephant, you just did.
Right.
Don't think of conceding a goal, you just conceded. So it's not very measurable scientifically or psychologically. But instead we started to change the language they were using. So get across them, win the header.
So positive
1v1, show them down the line, whatever that is. Information that your actual conscious mind is going to then register into your subconscious mind, which is where your habits are,
right? Where
your actions are. Your conscious mind is your doing, your subconscious mind is, your conscious mind is your knowledge, and your subconscious mind is your actions, your habits. So we wanted to create good habits over and over and over again. And management have those habits. They'll go in and slaughter players and create an unsafe psychological space, which creates cliques, creates the voids. Players want to move on to clubs. Easy to make a decision when you have a player that's harping on every time you make a mistake.
Yeah. Do you think maybe, you mentioned there, because the lads in the coaching badges and it's passed down to them and it's ingrained, it's institutional almost, like the way coaching is coached in Ireland. Do you think there's room for development within the coaching side of FAI badges to include what you're talking about, the mentality side of things as well? Because it sounds like they're probably not getting that side of the game as well.
It's very harsh for me to say yes, they need more support on that, because I've never done my badges. I don't know what's going. I know from speaking to coaches what goes on.
Does it appeal to you, Philly, to do badges? No,
to do badges. I got asked, did I want to do them? No interest. No,
okay,
no. I think when you do badges, there's a benefit to them.
Yeah,
there's a standardisation to it, but also you can be pigeonholed into having blind spots.
Right.
So, for example, all the coaches do their badges in the league. They'll get, they'll have their own way of doing things also, but they're kind of, this is the way you train, lads, this is the way you do things. And it stunts innovation to an extent, just to an extent, because every manager in the league will have their own ways. But you can look at managers, you can look at Damien Duff, Stephen Bradley, Keith Long, Trevor, and you can like, I'll give you an example. The information I can give players is, how do we know when we're doing things right? First of all, performance KPIs, the result, the scoreline, all that sort of stuff. But we can also look at the energy of the team. The energy of your bench is crucial. So we used to look at things. Let's look at it this way. I know I'm probably going loads of different directions here. But
no, this is great, Philly.
It's the way it works in my head. But
I'd rather listen to you saying this than say, Eric, give me 10 burpees like you were doing yesterday.
But what we would have done was, we would have challenged the status quo. We would have challenged the standards of the culture of what Bohs would have experienced, to the extent of challenging the officials. So what I mean by that is, we would have said to the players at a certain point, do not talk to the officials. The only person that talks to the officials is the captain.
Okay.
All right. Okay. And we don't want to. They've a hard enough job. Everybody makes mistakes. Don't get on their backs. Get on the ball, move the ball. That's our game. We want to play a game where we angle, we move the ball fast, we shift their defence, and we fatigue them, and eventually we create opportunities to get shots with goals. And I remember talking to one of the linesmen walking over across the pitch before the game, and I said to him, "Do you notice that any of the players aren't really engaging with you? Giving lip or giving." And he says, "Do you know what? I actually do. I actually do. I've noticed that the last couple of games, I haven't felt as intimidated."
Right. Okay.
So when I intimidate you, generally you run or you fight back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fight or flight.
And that's where you see a little bit of bias in decision making in sports. That didn't even work though. There were still situations where we were identifying officials' mistakes, like obvious mistakes, and we were saying, we're telling these lads to be professional in their approach to officials, but it's not impacting your decisions of the officials. So that's one area that can be looked at.
Yeah.
The coaching badges thing, it's just another layer probably that they need to look at their pedagogy of how they actually coach. I know they probably do some sort of, micro teaching where somebody will observe somebody, but I think there's a level of that's not going to be seen unless you're a manager.
Right. I suppose the big debate, I suppose, that's going across the League of Ireland at the moment, Philly, is the. It's a simple question, and it's already in the conversations out there. It's in the stratosphere. Do League of Ireland clubs need more support from the government? And there's that big plan that's been submitted by the people behind the plan. That was a great way of saying it. That report was submitted by the people who submitted the report. So the FAI said it's time to deliver a new future for the League of Ireland, and the estimated cost of the whole infrastructure project is like 863 million. It's brilliant that it's even been spoken about as well. And Philly, because you've worked in the League of Ireland and you've seen, I suppose, you mentioned the passion of the fans, the passion of the people who work behind the scenes. There is a great foundation there, I suppose. But this is a much needed thing.
Well, it's the time to do it. The league is buzzing. The fan base has increased so much. If you watch that 2018 game against Cork, look at the Jody stand.
Yeah.
Right, no COVID then.
Yeah.
Look at the Jody stand. Look at the Jody stand every game this week. Look at Rovers, look at Cork, look at whatever you want, Dundalk. The league is buzzing right now. So it's the time to do it. That's the first thing I'll say. The infrastructure of the stadiums and the setups, a no-brainer. The difficulty you have is that there's a discrepancy between the levels of the clubs.
Right.
You would have heard the Drogheda manager come out and say, look, we are heavily under competing on the basis of investment.
Yeah.
And he'd welcome an investment. So how do you compete when you're a team like Drogheda and Rovers who have heavily invested, and then you have Bows who have a different model, who obviously, as is being mentioned, so much it's a fan base owned club, but they've had really a massive success through no fault of having a board that have done brilliant work. Their fan base increasing, the amount of money they've made from players moving on, but that has to stop somewhere.
Yeah.
Because they want to develop and they want to get to the stage of winning medals here, or winning cups and silverware here. So you have to stop. Like, the one thing I would say that Rovers have done really well, if you want to be successful in this league, have players that are going to be here for the next 2 or 3 years.
Right.
Middle-aged, in their careers. Dundalk done it. If you look at Bows right now, you have a cohort that are falling into that category, but then you have loads of lads on loan, a couple of Scottish boys, and it's unstable. Rovers generally have players that are going to be there for the long haul.
And that's where you can implement those plans. You said 2-3 year plans kind of thing.
And that's the problem. How do you get to a stage where all clubs can implement 2 to 3 year plans without having a strategy that's going to, go to the stage where Bows were a couple of years ago and they went into debt?
Your experience of the structural differences between, let's say, the GAA and football in Ireland. Your opinions and observations on that, Philly? Well,
let's say the obvious one is that we would train a little bit less but at higher intensity.
Okay.
Whereas the lads would train, there's this thing with Bows going full time.
Yeah.
They just changed the times.
So train in the morning as opposed to the evening.
They couldn't train anymore.
Right.
2 days off.
Yeah.
And especially when you had a Friday, Monday game. they changed the times, which suits the players a little bit more.
I think, I suppose like it's more appealing to the players now because they have the evenings off as opposed to waiting around all day to go training that night.
And they'll the lads will openly say it suits them better. So that's that. But in terms of they were full time, but just the times changed, which suits the players, which is great for their lives and everything else. So the style, the structures are different. The amount of games is totally different. Like in GA, you'd have now it's changing. You're starting to get more games, week and 2 weeks gaps. But it used to be when I was playing 4 weeks. You'd no excuse not to do your homework, your analysis. Whereas when you're a footballer, a lot of footballers aren't academic. So when you start to do academic stuff in classrooms, it gets difficult. Whereas GA fellas are very academic. A lot of them have went to university, so they find that stuff a little bit easier. But still want to play football as much as they're.
There's our exclusive there. Philly McMahon says GA players are smarter than footballers.
Jeez, don't do that. We're all smart in different ways. Yeah. We're all smart in different ways. But the culture is different. Yeah. It's definitely different. I think one of the narratives that I was trying to change was that there was a point where in the 2022 season there was this thing of lads were saying, Philly, this stuff is probably going over the heads of some of these lads that have just come in, and all I was trying to do was create a elite performance environment. So you're trying to say, instead of you saying these lads aren't kind of at the level to be taking this information on, it's you as a player need to get them to that level. You as a manager need to get them to that level so we can create that elite environment. So there is that question mark over innovation, over new things coming into the game. Like how many managers, how many teams do you see bringing in different sports people into their setup? Yeah, there's actually none. Yeah, I don't think so. I think John Caulfield is probably a bit of an outlier in that he's done a lot of work with people. He's a GA background as well. Like I remember meeting John before. I think they played Dundalk in the FAI Cup final, and he said to me, "I want to pick your brain." And he said to me, I actually bought the whole team your book so they have to read it before the game.
No way.
Like, geez, that's interesting.
Yeah.
He'd Lisa Vallon working with them as well. So he's very innovative when he did what he did. But it's a league that's so small and that, it's probably you're working with lads that you played with and you've got a respect and trust with. But I think the league could do better with bringing fellas, and this is probably selling me, but you could bring different sports people in. Gareth Southgate is very interesting. He had a working group, and in his working group, he could have brought in whatever old experienced lad that had managed England or managed whatever football teams. He brought in Stuart Lancaster. He brought in someone from digital, someone from military background. Okay. And what they came up was, it's very similar to the air issue now. They wanted to challenge the media narrative that was impacting the noise that was impacting the players.
Right.
So you play for England, you have to win the World Cup, you have to do this, and that's what he wanted to try block out. But he had a working group that hadn't the blind spots that other managers would have in the game. So he was learning so much more information. Ireland are falling into that now. Like Stephen Kenny, if you were to ask James McLean or someone else, what was your goal? Isn't there 100 caps? Play for around 100 caps. Probably get into an international tournament. If you were to ask a German footballer, English footballer, Brazilian, whoever, French, what's your ambition as an international footballer? To win the World Cup, to win the Euros, higher frequencies, thinking in different ways. Very similar to what I was talking about with
and also probably explains when you go back to the time, a lot of frustrations with Roy Keane, who was this elite level.
Yeah, but look what's happened to Stephen Kenny now. Like the society, like the football world in Ireland now are going, change it up. It's the best thing that group can do now is leave the jersey in a better place.
Right.
Build belief in the next group of players coming in and pass that on. Play good football. This is the style we play. Like, we can get the tournaments. We're not going to win it.
Yeah.
So Stephen Kenny for me, maybe organically is creating a culture. You can be unhappy with his results, but it's creating a culture that can be passed down for the next generation of players. That when you come through, it's all aligned.
Right.
So that's what I believe. Like you can be that person. You see the new Bows fans. Yeah. We need to win. We need to win. We need to win. Yeah. And are probably against the cultural stuff that the actual club was built upon. Mm-hmm. I actually spoke to the club historians when we done some workshops, started to understand how Bows was created created by a bunch of lads, mixed backgrounds in the Phoenix Park in a gate lodge, you know. So I wanted to connect that with the players, get them to understand. We had at that time Boas had the first black player. You know, they had different people from different backgrounds. It was an incredible club. So that has to be the people that are on the board have to honour that. And some fans maybe don't want that.
Oh no, yeah, the new breed. Anyway, all fans are welcome, but new breeds, keep your opinions to yourself. What I was going to say to you, Philly, you just mentioned Stephen Kenny, then that was something I wanted to come to you. Like, you know, there's a lot of spotlight on him. Obviously, he's the Irish senior manager, and you know, initially there was a lot of goodwill from, especially from the League of Ireland. They all want to see him do well, and I still think a lot of it is still there, but it's starting to change a little bit. People are starting to change their opinions. There's this expression that Shane Keegan used on the radio there the other day, and I thought it was very apt. He said that he gets annoyed when people say that Stephen Kenny is out of his depth, which he feels suggests that League of Ireland managers haven't got the ability to coach the national team. But it sounds from what you just said there that you've been quite happy with what Stephen has done in his role as the Irish manager.
I look at it differently. I look at the performance aspects of what he's done. Like, I don't just look at results, you know. So again, one of those things that we would have worked with Boas, and you know, it would have been big in the Dubs. You would have heard us talk about in the media. Big in Arsenal at the minute. The process,
yes,
not
the process,
outcome, not the outcome. And in the international world, the fans have become more outcome based. You know, and that's okay, because winning is the game in soccer. You know, that's the game. You got to win. You got to, you know. But for me, it's crucial that people realise that there's a process to this. You know, there's a culture that you don't like now, but could have a huge impact on the next generation of footballers coming through. Because we don't want to get to the stage where we just keep surviving, which means bring a new manager in, do okay, play a certain style of football and just plod through. Create a style, create a philosophy that young kids will look at that and go, that's a style that I could help. Pass it on to the next manager and pass it down, you know, through the ranks, and see really then how the quality then flourishes. And again, having this situation where the 18, you can't be going off to England till you're 18. I know there's a couple of lads going to Europe. That's going to make a stronger league here. It's going to make the levels of the setups here really good. But I just think, you know, there's been so many certain things where players coming in from other countries to play for Ireland, and that's okay. That's benefited us in the past as well. Certain players that have played with us then moving on, you know, Grealish and with Rice as an example. But we have a really multicultural population right now, so we need to benefit from that. Genetics, physical, all that sort of stuff. Although a lot of that lets down the underage of soccer in this country. For example, I train a lot of young footballers. That's what I do in my gym. I don't do much PT with people. Me staff do that. I focus on young footballers and have MMA fighters as well. And basically what we do is we try, you know, improve the easiest performance pillar, which is physical. But a lot of it is organic. It's genetic, right? So every young lad, technically one of the best of the lads I have, right? Now he's just about going to go through his growth spurt from 14 to 15 to 16, right? The gaps that we have now in National League in this country, it's 15, 17, 19s. He was playing for a club, kind of lost love, conflict with the manager, dropped off, went down to the DDSL League, played with a club. He was above the level of that. Yeah. Wants to get back up to National League now, but can't get up there because all the teams that are looking at him, they're looking at him from the physical point of view, not the technical side. Right.
So he's that 2-year gap, he's a year younger or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, between 15 and 17, it's terrible. Like, so if you have a kid that is playing soccer and GA, those years he's going to go off playing GA. Right. Because the elitism is different. Okay. Right. So the league is letting a lot, the potential in the country is being let down a lot. So we could talk about Stephen Kenny and the first team, but there's there's an alignment piece that the FEI need to look at all the way through.
But this goes back to this funding thing, doesn't it? Like, you know, and the want from the FEI to increase infrastructure, but also to employ a lot more full-time coaches, because listen to coaches on podcasts before, their frustrations are because they're not full-time and kids are off on Easter holidays, summer holidays, whatever, they can't train them until the evenings because they're doing work themselves that day. But if they're full-time, they could be doing football camps, work camps, and installing this culture on the younger generation. Sorry, Philly, we're running out of time here, but I just wanted to get your perspective on Stephen Hunt has been a regular contributor to the podcast. A proud Waterford man, still thinks he could ensure that Waterford win a hurling All-Ireland by himself, so he still loves the guy and all that. And we asked him a question there. What does he, in his experiences, are professional footballers fitter than the modern day GAA player? And he doesn't believe they are, because what was his reason? His reason was, I suppose, with football, it's day in, day out. Whereas with the GAA...
So he said soccer players are fitter than GAA?
Yeah.
So I'm a strength and conditioning coach, so I know the numbers on it, right? They can't be compared.
Okay, right.
I'll tell you why. Because I had a chat with Kevin Kilban recently, and we were chatting about some of the numbers. And so it's very hard to compare, because the dynamics of a pitch, the time of the game, the contact in the game, and the skill level of the game, it's very hard to compare. So if someone says one or the other,
you're comparing chalk and cheese.
It's very hard. Like in a GAA game, 10k over 1k in terms of meters, high speed running. In soccer, you're looking at over 90. That's over 70 minutes, 70 plus minutes. Over 90 minutes, you're talking about 12 to 13k. But you're structured as well. You've offside. You have systems. GAA, it's a bit more open. So if I do 10k in a game, it's 100 laps at Croke Park, like.
Wow.
And you're getting hit, and you're moving the ball, and you're soloing the ball. Like, if you look at the shape of soccer players compared to GAA players are more robust. Mm-hmm. What I mean by that is they have to be more robust because they're getting hit, you know, so they have to be more muscular to protect their body, like, you know. And you look at, like, so GAA players have big, massive quads because they're soloing the ball, so they have knee extension all the time, soloing the ball, kicking the ball in the air. Soccer players massive calves because they're
Grealish.
Grealish, and that's because of agility.
Yeah,
it's GAA's more linear. Soccer, you need
an explosiveness and that kind of thing, is it?
Yeah, it's multi-directional. So in movement efficiency, you have acceleration, speed, multi-directional movements, and deceleration. There's four. So you speed, acceleration, deceleration, and multi-directional. So in GAA, because you have the length of the pitch, you have acceleration, speed, not much multi-directional. In soccer, because you stay in your structure, let's say a 6 or someone that plays in the field, that have to have really good agility, like Jack Bourne. Low centre of gravity, turn really sharp. That's perfect body shape for a midfielder.
And I'm being told that we've come to the end of our time. But before I go, Philly, Dublin Mayo on Sunday.
I thought, it would have been nice to say Bows or Rovers next week, but Dublin Mayo, it's going to be so good. I worry about Dublin not having to play their sparring partners, let's say, in the last couple of games. Yeah, they wouldn't have been exposed to what Mayo have been exposed to. Galway or Tip to win an All-Ireland this year, you know. So they're going to have to settle the ship for the first 20 minutes. They're going to have to focus on the third quarter, where Mayo are really strong. They were strong when they beat us 2 years ago in the third quarter. They were strong against Galway in the third quarter. And I think now Dublin can say to themselves, right, lads, look, this is our chance to, the horse that we have from 2 years ago, let's channel it. Let's do it. Like, and if they win that game, you know.
Who's winning the All-Ireland, Philly?
I couldn't really say. I couldn't really actually say who was going to win at the start of the year, but I recently I've said to myself, it's set up for the Kerry Dublin final, you know, and if Dublin beat Mayo, I think Dublin could win it.
There you go. Yeah. There you go. The Jacks are back. Everyone calling me whatever on the podcast now. Philly McMahon, thanks very much for joining me today on House Football. It was an absolutely fascinating and interesting chat, and I hope everyone out there enjoyed it. That's all for me, Eric Lalor. I will be back next week with House of Football with Sports Show and William Hill. Please do as I've always asked you to do: subscribe, like, share, tell your friends, and we'll talk to you next week.
You've been listening to House of Football, brought to you by Sports Joe and William Hill.